I was just gonna give Said a motivational speech before we started, so I don't.
I think you should
But
still do it, Ali.
I'm still gonna do
Like,
it right
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Just apply it on
Okay.
everyone. on the floor.
Okay.
Okay.
Said, imagine this, man. Out
Yeah.
of all the podcasts, dude, how many podcasts are there? How many podcasts are there? How many podcasts have ever existed? Thousands of them, even tens of thousands, right?
Millions, actually.
Millions,
Exactly.
exactly. And think of how many podcasts are going to come after us, dude.
Yeah.
Infinite, right?
100%.
Imagine this. The best podcast has not been existed yet. The best podcast has not been created yet. You know why? Because we're here to create it. Because we're doing it as we speak. The most infinite, most epic podcast has yet to be born. And it is our lane to take it for ourselves. Just imagine that, Saeed. Imagine how beautiful the world is that we exist. Wow.
Thank you, Ali. You've inspired my cold heart. That's been great. As you can see, my reactions are always so terrible at these things.
I really felt a lot of emotion, actually, Said. That was really touching. Really moved me.
Just imagine it. Imagine it, dude. Anything's possible.
I wholeheartedly
The
agree.
best public speech has yet to exist, dude. Imagine that. The best public speech, you have the most famous speeches out of all of existence, dude.
Yeah.
You have Martin Luther King, JFK, right? Obama,
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. Wow.
Ali
Kanye
the
West.
Professor.
Ali the Professor.
Do
Imagine
you have a
that.
TED Talk yet? Said, we got
We got to get him a TED Talk.
We're trying. We're still trying on that. It's a work in progress.
Yet to exist. But
Yeah, we gotta put him up in some, like, what's it called? You know, when stand-up comedians just do like on the spot shows. Gotta do something like that for him first.
improv.
Gotta
I should
build
do
up his
some improv.
repertoire.
I see. Got to practice it live. Wow. Well, thanks, Brenden, for your time.
Yeah, it's good to be here, guys.
Sorry for
Brenden,
that whole
what's
rant.
your? It's okay, Ali. It's a good rant. But I want to ask Brenden, what do you think is the best speech or public speaking conversation that's existed?
It's tough, right? There's so many good ones to pick from. But if I had to choose one, I would say Tony Robbins' speeches in general. I think the guy is the GOAT of this industry. Like, he is known for, and I didn't believe him. I thought he was lying, where he speaks for 12 hours straight with no bathroom breaks. But then I went to see him in person give a workshop, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's not joking. He's really enthusiastic. So yeah, he's hard to beat.
Wow.
Bro, 12 hours without taking a bathroom break. Like, he's got to be constipated towards the end or something. I don't know. There's got to be something.
Something's up. I mean, you should guys. I don't know if you guys have seen him speak before, but you definitely should. I mean, now he doesn't do it as much anymore, like the whole 12-hour thing, because he's 63 years old now. But for most of his career, yeah, he just kept going on and on. It was crazy.
Wow. Okay. So what is a public speech?
What is a public speech?
What is public speaking?
Yeah, that's good, Ali. So my definition of public speaking and communication is largely the same, which is, how do we convey an idea in a way that achieves a specific outcome for a specific audience? So I'll repeat that again. How do we convey an idea in a way that achieves a specific outcome for a specific audience? So that could mean a bunch of different things. That could be Martin Luther King's speech of "I have a dream," or the goal is to convince the audience that we need to elevate the standards of the Black community to match the same level of standard of living as the white community, let's say. But it could also mean convincing your significant other to get Chinese food tonight instead of Mexican food. That's also communication, because you're conveying an idea that helps people achieve an outcome based on the audience you're speaking to. That's my definition anyways.
Wow. Okay, so let's do a bit of a role play. Saeed, I know you want to get Chinese food, but I want to get a burger. Okay, let me do this. Saeed, yeah, I know, man. I want to get Chinese food. No. What do you want to eat
Ali,
tonight?
I want to get Chinese food. Like I'm in the mood for something sweet and sour.
Wait, what about me,
What-
guys? I'm hungry too.
Oh. Brenden is the phone is the phone operator. We'll call him for the.
It's like, this is pretty racist. Like, I want some food too. I want a burger. What is this? I give the tip and you guys go, yeah, you don't get any food, Brenden. Let's just...
I'll give you a slice of the pizza if you'd like. That's
Pizza? You guys are choosing between burgers or something?
Burgers and Chinese food. Yeah, okay.
Where are you guys getting pizza from?
So, Saeed, you're really into Chinese
Yes.
food. I understand. But, I've worked really hard today, and I have a guest on the podcast that I'm really excited for.
Yeah.
And burgers just put me in the right mood and the right vibe for it.
Okay.
Is
So
it
Ali, I want to
okay?
ask you, based on that, what is your energy level at the moment after this at the end of the day? Like on a rating, on like a percentage wise, if you can give it that to me.
Look how Ali just like,
I'm confused about the question. I thought we were talking about food deliveries, but yeah, exactly.
Wait. Stick with me. Stick with me. Don't worry. I'm still role
in the
playing.
argument. God, we're still
In the
role-playing.
conversation. Yeah, we're still role playing.
Yeah, I would say towards the end of the day, I'm at like 20 to 30% because I've done my working out. I've done all my activities. I'm ready. I'm done to relax and unwind. And, I like lifted and I did Taekwondo. And so I deserve something meaty. Chinese food is too carby for me. It's not part of my goals. And I would hope that we can align our goals and get burgers. And the diner is right here. So maybe we can get something else that you like, because they have a lot of different kinds of foods at the diner that you might enjoy too.
Well, Ali, I will choose to cover the other 70% for the relationship that we have. And I will agree with you and we'll get the burgers.
Yeah! Okay. All right, Brenden. Now critique that. Yeah.
yeah, that was horrible. But so one, there was a lot of racism because I wanted burgers too. I wasn't offered anything. The second piece, Ali, is your conversation's too focused on you. You're like, oh my God, like, I want burgers. I'm so cool. I'm tired. And people make this mistake, not just in friendships, but in romantic relationships too, where they always make conversations about them. Well, I want this because I like it. Versus going, hey, Saeed, how about we get burgers tonight? I know they have your favorite French fries at the diner, and dinner's on me. What do you think? Wow. So notice how like I make it about us. I make it about him actually before I even make it about. So I never even bring up the fact that I even like burgers. I always go, hey, I think we should go to the diner because I know they have your favorite meatloaf and French fries, and the first round's on me, man. I got you tonight. What do you think? So I don't go, oh my God, I like burgers. We're totally gonna get burgers. You don't tell me what to do, Saeed. We're gonna get burgers. You don't have any choice. So yeah, that's an example of. Okay. Hopefully, you guys aren't married, or else it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's a long distance relationship.
Long distance. All right, Brenden.
No, I didn't mean with each other. I meant like individual. Unless you guys are gay, which I don't. I don't want to judge these. I mean, it's 2023. You never
on
know.
Zoom. Yeah, doing a podcast.
First calling
on
us
Zoom.
racist, and now he's being homophobic. Oh.
It's okay because I'm Indian, so it doesn't matter.
We're all accepting.
I'm a brown guy. It doesn't matter.
Brenden from Master Talk. All right, so tell us about first impressions. What was your first impression of us, and how do we deliver the best first impression?
The first impression of you, Ali, was really around, what are you the professor of? That was my first thought. So I wasn't really sure. Are you like you look like a physics professor, but because you got like a 2 in the back, and I was thinking, was this like the Arab Einstein or something? That was my first impression.
Okay, not bad.
Saeed's first impression was more around commitment. I was like, wow, he's coming at 9 p.m. to do this interview. So that was my first impression. So how do you make them better? I would say for me, it really comes back to making the person feel seen, heard, and understood. And it's a lot easier to do this in person, obviously, than virtually, where you go up to them, you smile, and you ask them about their life. So that's what I would focus on with first impressions.
So Brenden, would you choose burgers or Chinese?
That's a meaningful question. I like both. I actually had both in a week at some point, but if I had to pick one, I really like Chinese food a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely more variety and just like flavor, man. It's just flavor. It's just good flavor. You gotta,
It's tasty.
yeah.
All right, Brenden, we're here to learn from you. Seriously, you have the knowledge. We want the knowledge. So this is a good way to transmit it. So
The professor wants to learn, bro.
one of the problems is Said sometimes cuts me off, and sometimes I cut Said. Okay. How do we avoid doing that?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily an issue, actually, because that's the intention of the show, where it's more about being entertaining and educational. So if you guys cut each other off, it's not necessarily bad. I think what you want to avoid is cutting each other off when you're in the middle of a joke. That you don't want to do. And you guys haven't done that so far since the beginning of the show. So I think it's fine. Just don't interrupt if you guys are married or have wives or something or girlfriends or boyfriend. Don't cut them off or else you're going to be in trouble. And the way you do this is just by listening to them and waiting for them to stop for like 2 or 3 seconds. I usually wait an extra 2 or 3 seconds before, not like in this type of conversation, but with somebody else, let's say in private, where I wait for them to stop talking for like 2 to 3 seconds and then I talk so I know that I'm not interrupting them.
So would you use that for someone who's just continuously speaking, for example, and doesn't know when to stop?
So that's a different problem, which is, why are we talking to this person? So that's one of it. We got to give them the feedback sometimes. And then the other piece to that is if it's somebody that you love, there's a way to interrupt them in a way that's healthy. So you could say something like, let's say they're talking and it's been like 15 minutes or like 10 minutes. You could say, hey, I really appreciate what you said about X. And I really like that because so you interrupt with a compliment. You don't interrupt by going, hey, you talk too much. You go like, you're still doing it, but you're doing it differently. So it's like, so let's say I wanted to interrupt Ali. I would say, hey, Ali, I really liked your share around burgers. I love burgers too. They're so good because of blah, blah, blah. So I just took the conversation from him. But because I did it from a point of a compliment, Ali doesn't feel like I stole the show.
Oh.
Okay.
I see,
So it's
Brenden.
like you're appreciating their presence and then indirectly telling them, like, I think your time is up.
And it's a great point that you mentioned that, Said, about your time is up. Exactly right. So notice how I kind of interrupted you with a compliment just to demonstrate that a little bit. But you were done speaking too.
Oh.
You get the idea.
I
was a very
appreciate the
nice
point that you made, Brenden.
Point you guys made. This is a great
This
point.
is more of an interactive podcast. It's a more of a different format that I'm used to, so I'm just adapting as we're going.
So what is the format that you're used to?
Usually it's pretty boring, actually. That's why I appreciate it.
Yeah!
Like, woo! We're excited to have Brenden on the show. Brenden, so my first question to you is, where does the idea come from, Master? I was like, bro, I've been on like 500 podcasts. Just look it up. It's already there.
All right. So what about, that was a nice point you made, and we don't like to repeat other people's questions. Thank you for calling us funny. We appreciate it.
You guys are funny, actually. I like it.
How do we prepare for a speech? So right before this, I was doing the I was doing that over and over because 1, it makes my voice loud. 2, it helps me pronunciate and enunciate and articulate.
Yeah.
What do you think about those ticks?
I mean, I like that. Just try a different tone every time. So instead of going try try different sounds. To see
there you go.
I like that. You can be
feel
like
it
an
now.
opera. It's good. I feel something. I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but
It definitely wakes you up.
It creates a different sensation for sure. In terms of preparing for a speech, the way that I approach it is you always start with the key idea, right? Like what are we trying to achieve? What is the goal? So if the key idea is to convince people they can be great speakers, that's the key idea. And then what you do is you practice like a jigsaw puzzle. You guys know jigsaw puzzles, right? You got like pieces put together in a box. So I'll throw guys the question. If you work on a jigsaw puzzle, which pieces do you start with and why?
I don't know
Give
if
us
this was
something.
a rhetorical question or.
Oh, I'll give you guys. You guys
This
seem
is
like
a
you know the answer.
great question. This is a great question. I
I'll
know
give
what the
it-
answer is. You start with the corners, you start with the edges, and then you build
Uh-huh.
your way into the middle.
You got it,
To
Mr.
the core.
Professor. Why is that? Why is that?
Because there are only 4 corners. Once you have the corners established, you're able to connect the corners. They're easy to locate, they're easy to discriminate, and once you have that foundation, you have an outline, a skeleton of a picture, and you can fill it in and continue doing so, and it makes it
I mean,
faster.
that was like the perfect answer to the question. Good job. Points for Ali. Right? So exactly, right? So why am I bringing this up, guys? Because when we prepare for presentations, unfortunately, we do the opposite. We shove a bunch of content. Then throughout the whole presentation, we ramble throughout, and then the last slide sounds something like this. Thanks, yeah. And that's not what we want to do. So how you want to do it is practice the edges first, like a jigsaw puzzle. Do the introduction like 10 times or 15 times, which seems like a big number, but the intro is like 2 minutes. Then do the same thing with the conclusion. What's a great movie with a terrible ending? Last time I checked, terrible movie. Like TV shows like Game of Thrones. Then work your way in the middle. That's it.
Oh, wow. That's so genius. So work on the introduction, work on the conclusion, and let the bits fall in between.
You got it. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's genius. I got lucky. I was coaching a 5-year-old on public speaking, and I was coaching on this call, and she goes, Mr. Brenden, what's a presentation? I go, shit, okay. I guess it's introduction, middle, and a conclusion. And then she follows up with, Mr. Brenden, what's an introduction? What's a conclusion? And then I was like, shit, okay, what do I do? So I'm literally looking around, and I see a bunch of jigsaws on the floor. There's like a puzzle on the floor, and I was like, public speaking is like a jigsaw puzzle. She's like, I love puzzles. And I was like, okay, how do I make this shit work? And I was like, oh, well, the edges and the middle. And she's like, oh, I get it, edges of the puzzle. And then the epiphany came at the right time. That's how I figured out the tip.
That was pretty like on your like a very improvised kind of thought process, and it worked out. Like I like how you just directly, stood on your feet and gave that answer quickly to her, and she directly realized.
Yeah, I don't get lucky a lot of the times, but that was one of those moments where it worked out for sure.
Would you say you learn by doing? Like you learned public speaking through practicing and teaching it?
I would say almost 100% of it is doing. I actually have a conviction that I have to fix this year. I still haven't read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is weird because I'm like one of the. I mean, I'm not one of the top guys just yet, but I'm pretty up there at this point, and I still haven't read the book because I'm so bad at books. Mm-hmm. So a lot of my teachings was when I was in college. You guys, I was teaching a lot of people on communication, but I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, which is really the opposite of what I teach today. So a lot of the way that I learned was through practice. I would make a ton of mistakes coaching people. They go, I'm not getting any better. And I was like, okay, how do I fix this? And then I start fixing the problems. And then over time, I grew into who I am today.
Wow. So would you say at one point you were awkward, right? I know you've said you're introverted, but would you say, what was it like for you, let's say in high school, middle school? Were you like talking to girls and such? How did that go for you?
Or guys in this case. I mean, it's 2023. Things are
yes.
Things are changing now. But yeah, so in my case, so I'm not really introverted. It's more the fact that I was really awkward as a kid because I grew up in Montreal in Canada. So for those who are listening and don't know, Montreal is a city where you need to learn how to speak French, which is a language I didn't know. So my parents sent me to French school to learn it, but I didn't know the language. So my whole life I was presenting and talking to people in a language I didn't know. So I was like, bonjour, tout le monde, and I was just really bad at French. Now I'm fluent, but at the time it was really bad. And I got a crooked left arm too. So I got like a little physical disability here. It's very well hidden on my YouTube channel, but yeah, so because of that, I struggled a lot with speaking. Actually, I'm kind of surprised that I became a communication coach. That's why I was like to say it chose me, because I wanted to be an accountant, right? It's literally the opposite of what a communication professional is. But yeah, that's what happened.
It sounds from all of these things that like the experiences you've had to build this skill set. Sorry, the skill set in communication. It shows that you like to take a lot of risks. So would you identify as a risk taker then?
I mean, I see where you're coming from, Saeed. Like, definitely. Like, because a lot of people are scared of public speaking. So there's definitely... And I've taken some risk. I wouldn't call myself a risky daredevil. I'm super scared of heights. Like, when I was in the CN Tower in Toronto, it's like this big tower. There's a feature in the tower called the glass ceiling. So it's a glass ceiling where you walk over it and you can see the bottom. Like, you can see the bottom, like the road and the streets. And my cousin, just to mess with me, starts jumping up and down on the glass, and I start freaking out. I was like, "We're all gonna die!" So I'm really scared of heights. Skydiving too scares the living shit out of me. Yeah. So and even when I quit my job to pursue this full time, I had like 7 months of savings. I lived in my mom's basement. Like, I took very little risk. But in communication, I'm a big risk taker. But in every other area of my life, now I'm probably a wuss, honestly.
And do you believe that for people to develop this confidence in public speaking, for them to be able to communicate better with strangers or people they already know, and just to constantly become better communicators, should they also take risks in general, or it doesn't need that much?
Yeah, my opinion, Saeed, is the perception is that you're taking a lot of risk. That's the external perception. Oh my God, you have to take so much risk. But in reality, it's not really that much risk. Like, how much risk did you guys really take to start this podcast? Like, did you give up on everything? Like, no. Right? You got to just put a suit on, call yourself the professor, and said, "Okay, let's just start and let's just start the show and figure it out." So that's what happened, and which is fine. Which proves the point. You don't need to take a lot of risk. But the key is just to take little risks that feel big at the beginning. Like, when I posted my first video, I was scared out of my wits. I was like, oh my God, like, what are people going to think of me? People think I'm a loser, blah, blah, blah. But then later on in life, you're like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah. So the advice is to start small. So I'll give you an exercise I do called the random word exercise. You take a word like phone or camera or copper or headphones, and you just create random presentations out of thin air. And you do that for 60 seconds. Just do that a few times a day, and you'll get pretty good at speaking really quickly without having to jump off a tower or do skydiving or anything crazy like that.
I completely agree with that point, because like you literally took the point from my head. When you said small risks, and small risks, I believe, build a more consistent and successful foundation. Oh my God, sorry. I've been outside a lot today, so the sun has just been killing my voice. I don't know how that works, but it works.
Yeah, me too. I was like, is the UK sun different than...
It is scorching hot here, man. It's scorching hot. But I'm digressing. Back to the point I was trying to make was, I agree with the small risks part, because I feel like it builds a better foundation for people with just being consistent. Because when people just dive into, like head on into like major experiences that can, either make it or break it, and take these risks that they should not necessarily make, if they think that it's something they can do consistently. But the issue with that is, when you build that illusion in your head, you're probably building up yourself to fail, because even if you succeed, yes, you will succeed big time. But if you try again and again, and then you fail, you will also fail big time. But doing the small risks, in my opinion, will build a more consistent basis for you to continue on.
Love it. You explained it pretty well.
Thank you. Except for the voice cracks.
So,
just stay inside
Brenden,
for a few days. Go ahead, Ali.
What has karaoke taught you about life and public
speaking? Here we go. The conversation has begun. Yeah, what has karaoke taught me about life? I mean, I think the big thing. Usually, people ask me what's karaoke taught me about public speaking, but life is realizing that you don't need a lot to be really happy. You know, people think that you need a big rocket ship and you need to be a billionaire. You can go to space, and all those things are pretty cool. Don't get me wrong, but I think for me, like how I got into karaoke, which is super random, is when I was in college. Most of my friends were in the Asian community because I played this game called League of Legends as a kid. I was like super obsessed.
Yep, we all did.
Yeah,
Seriously.
I was like, and I was the whole package. Like, I mean, I would play in tournaments. I ran an esports club. I would watch the championships every single year with a bunch of friends. Like, it was a whole thing. I don't game anymore, but back then that was my life. And because of that, most people, I mean, it's not to be racist, just most of them are Chinese people or Japanese people. So they're all my friends. So one day they asked me, I was playing video games like 6 p.m. They're like, hey, do you want to go out tonight? I was like, yeah, where are you guys going? Like to a bar or something? They go, no, we're going karaoke. I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, we're just going to sing. I was like, I don't know how to sing. They said, yeah, it's okay, just come. And I said no the first few times. But after the 7th time they asked, I was like, might as well go. And then I'm sitting in this booth with like 10 other Asian people. And they start putting up songs like in Chinese and Korean. They start singing in different languages. I was like, well, this is pretty cool. So then I go home and I start practicing these different languages. And that began my lifelong passion in karaoke. I think today I can karaoke in 8 different languages. I'm trying to learn the 9th one now, but I don't. By the way, I'm not fluent in these languages. I'm fluent in 3, but I can karaoke in 8. Yeah. So yeah, just have fun with the simple things in life. I have so much fun with karaoke, and it doesn't cost that much money.
Wow. Brenden. I have a.
What is that? What the hell is that?
He gets sometimes overwhelmed. It's okay.
Not overwhelmed, but sometimes, you know, like what you said is so like true, and it resonates with me deeply, and it makes me upset that so many people are upset and anxious and, you know, on medications, depressed, suicidal, all these things. And, you know, while it doesn't take that much to be happy, it's the little things that make you happy, you know? And that's what I love for this podcast, to be the kind of like antidote to all the mental turmoil, you know, that everyone's suffering through, really. And just for you to say that, hey, you know, like, just do some karaoke. It's fun, it's simple, and it'll make you happy. Wow.
100%. There's even an exercise you can do called the bliss list. So the bliss list is like a list of all of the small little things that bring you joy. So nothing big. Nothing like go to Mount Everest or something, or go to Nepal for a week. But it's more like ordering $5 churros at your favorite restaurant. Getting a tiramisu at an Italian restaurant nearby for $7. As you can tell, like desserts a lot. Dancing in between meetings. I do that all the time. I go night clubbing a lot. I mean, not a lot. Maybe once a quarter, maybe once every 4 months. But I don't drink. So I just pay the cover fee, which is like $5, and I have the best workout, and I go home. So there's that. So just putting that a little bit more in your schedule is just such an easy way to be happier in general.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. I checked. I'm also in one of your videos, and you said, and you going back to the karaoke point, and I like how you mentioned it helps with your articulation, and I want to understand the influence of articulation on public speaking. You know, like, what is the impact of it, and its effect on, you know, people listening to you.
It's funny, out of all the research you guys could have done, it was like, let's find the karaoke video and like watch. I think that's so funny, because you asked the question so seriously. So, Brenden, I was studying your video on the 3 lessons you learned from karaoke, and you mentioned about articulation. Can you just elaborate on that for the...
I'm taking my notes, bro. I'm just like, you know, it's like, Brenden, the professor, please just like...
You're like some historian who's going to study me 100 years after I'm dead and say, you know, and Brenden Kumarasamy first drew the analogies between boxing, fish sauce, and public speaking. He talked about... That's funny. Anyways, yes, you're right, Sayed. So the reason karaoke helped me a lot with articulation, which I found out later, by the way, not in the moment. I wasn't doing karaoke and thinking, oh my goodness gracious, my pronunciation is improving dramatically. I should do this more. It was more after the fact. Is when you pronounce words in languages you don't understand, it automatically improves articulation in the ones that you do understand. So if I say something in Italian like "Buongiorno, come stai? Molto bene, Eli," which just means "Hey, how are you? I'm good. You?" Or in Japanese, "Ohayo gozaimasu, genki desu ka?" which is "Hi, good morning. How are you doing today?" So notice I'm switching languages pretty seamlessly, but I am not fluent in Italian or Japanese, but my pronunciation is correct for those those small words I cherry picked. So when I go back to English, that's why when I enunciate words in this language, it's really easy for me to go back to English because I know the language well. So that's the unintended benefit of doing karaoke.
I resonate with this point because so I'm fluent in 2 languages, but I can speak, like, I understand a bit of French and German. I'm not very good at them, but whenever I communicate with like French people or German people, my pronunciation is correct, and I don't have much of an accent, and I notice like their reaction to that is like they're joyful, like someone who's not from their country actually, who might not know the language that well, but is saying the words correctly. It's like they're kind of impressed, and they're happy that they're meeting someone like that. So it really elevates the communication between us, and then the whole interaction.
I agree. Like, same thing when I went to Italy. This was 10 years ago at this point. Like, I practiced Italian for a few weeks to the point where I could convince somebody that I was Italian, even if I knew like 10 words. Like, I remember this, like, where is the bank? I remember I was at some Ferrari store, not because I could afford a Ferrari, it's just a store. So I just watch, I take pictures, and I leave. And I don't buy anything. So I want to make sure I'm aligned here. So I'm walking to the store, and I don't know where the bank is. So I go up to the woman, I go, "Dove è la banca?" which is like, where is the bank? And she goes, "These, and I'm just like, and then she goes, "Oh, good?" And I go, "Excellent, bellissimo."
Bellissimo.
And I had no idea what she said, but I found the bank. It was nearby, but yeah, I get it.
Wow. Brenden, I'm gonna like dive in real deep right now. For the audience listening to this, might change your life. Public speaking can change your life. Communication can change your life. Okay, so let me give you a bit of a background here. I'm a behavior analyst, is what I do for a profession, and my focus is language. I teach like mostly people with autism who don't know how to speak. I help teach them how to speak, and more than just articulation of words. When people learn how to speak, I found out by accident that they actually learn how to think. And the better they speak, the more they think, and the more like self-actualized they become. They reach a higher frequency, not just in speech but in thinking. And I never realized that thinking is just internal speaking. When you know how to speak, you can learn how to think. What's your opinion on all that I shared? Yeah.
That was powerful, Ali. I love that, and thanks for the work that you're doing. That's awesome. I've worked with a couple of kids with autism too in my career, so it's really powerful when you get to hear them speak and share ideas. And for me, I think the way that I describe what you said in a broader scope is communication is an accelerant of dreams. Doesn't really matter what your dream is. Communication helps you accelerate that dream. So I'll give an example. If you want to get promoted at work, then having better communication skills will make it much easier for you to interview for roles, get a promotion, and realize most people in leadership roles have great communication. If you want to start a business and you know how to communicate better, it's a lot easier to close deals, easier to make money, and you can do what you love full time. So that's the benefit for that. But also being a great parent. If you are an exceptional communicator, you can deal with conflict resolution better, and you can teach your children better ways of resolving conflict. So they show up as better examples for people in society. So you're right, Ali. I think communication is the rope that ties everything together. And that's why, by the way, I'm so passionate about Master Talk and what I've done in my career and with just providing this stuff for free is like, this shit should be available for free. Like, why isn't this taught for free and accessible to everyone? Yeah, for sure. I'm going to coach some people privately who'll pay me the big bucks, but I should definitely make it a point to share all of this stuff with everybody before I die. And because of how important it is, because it makes your life better. But I loved the way you thought about the relationship between speaking and thinking. I haven't spent enough time thinking about that, but not to use a pun here, but it's true. Like I don't really think enough about that, so I need to dig deeper. But you're right. Like if you're a better communicator in general, I definitely tend to believe you're right. Where you think better in your head, your thoughts become more specific, and that allows you to make better decisions. So good tie in there as well.
Wow. What do you think about that, Said?
So yeah, going on that point, I really feel like that can be correlated to multiple different activities. Basically, just it's not only language; it can also be something physical, or it could be something that you social, well, which is basically also talking. But
what do you mean?
So I feel like it has to do with just building some sort of discipline, you know. And communication is a type of discipline for the mind, while you can also do similar things for the body, which can improve elevate your thinking. And I remember I mentioned this on a previous podcast, where if you combine both the disciplines that you get from your body and then the ones that you get from your mind and combine them, that's when you get like the most you can reach the highest potential of yourself. You kind of have to combine them in a way so that you find the balance and truly achieve the best form of yourself.
Love it.
Thank you. I guess.
I'm interested in Said. Don't mean to cut you off. That was an interesting point. I would like to elaborate on that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about discipline in terms of communication and speech. I'm always curious because in your videos you say, yeah, me and my friend, we practice this together. We just talk back and forth and we practice pausing, or we practice these random word exercises. How do you find someone to do that with you? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, great point, Ali. So there's different ways that we would approach this, right? I will admit that in my case, my advice like what happened to me can't be applicable to everyone else because I got lucky. You know, when I was in college, I did these things called case competitions, which was a program specifically to communication. And we had the world's largest one. So there's like 80 people in it. So I had a ton of people to practice speaking.
Oh, wow.
And that's why I got really good really quickly because I coached all of those people. Right, for free after, and that's how I built up my skill set to coach everybody else. So that doesn't make sense because nobody can join a case competition program. So there's different ways I'd approach this. Number one, especially for people listening who have children or nieces and nephews, do make them the practice schedule. So do this with your family. Like if you have a 5-year-old kid, do the random word exercise with them. It's just instead of them watching TV, play the random word as if it's a game. So when you integrate it in your family life, it doesn't feel like practice anymore. So that would be the first way you can do this. The second one is a friendship group. Like you guys can do this together, but I'm sure you meant for the people listening to this. So it could be like a Toastmasters club, finding a little club where there's proximity. Toastmasters isn't that expensive. It's like $200 a year. And then you could meet like different people who share the same interests as you, and you could work on it. The third one is obviously to pay for the accountability, right? To hire a coach like me, and then that accountability is built in where I'm the one yelling at you to get the job done. But it depends, right? Not everybody can spend thousands of dollars on somebody like me. So if you can't, you're not in that situation, just find families or integrate. No, don't find different families. Sorry, practice within your own family, and find a Toastmasters group. I mean, people can't say they don't have $20 a month to spend on like a Toastmaster group. But then if you're more of like a higher level executive, I'd say just hire a coach like me, because it's just faster and you already get curated with a bunch of high level people, and the practice is a lot more efficient.
By the way, Brenden, I want to disagree with you on one point when you mentioned
Please,
that
that's
you were,
interesting.
that when you say that you were lucky. You said that like maybe a few times now on this podcast, and I disagree with you. I don't think you were lucky. I think you consciously put yourself in situations that provided you with the opportunities that you got. So, for example, in the competition that you were in, where you met the person that you could, learn from, and they can learn from you, it's because you put yourself in that tournament, and then that gave you opportunities to recognize potential of other people who could also be in the same situation as you. And that is like something important, which is recognizing potential if you want to build a strong core team. And that's why I don't believe you were lucky. I believe you were just making the right decisions.
And I also tend to agree with that too, Said. I think a good way to bridge both of our perspectives is the Microsoft's president, one old president, he said this in a book by Alex Benayan called The Third Door. And in the book, he says that luck is like a bus, where you're standing in front of the bus stop and the bus comes to pick you up. But if you don't have the money to get on the bus, you can't go for the ride. But that's the problem. A lot of us, we get lucky in our life. But if we don't have the fare to get on the bus, we don't get the results. So yes, was I lucky? But the fact that I was born in a first world country, that I just so happened to go to a university that had the world's largest case competition program, that I just so happened to go to that specific event where they told me to do these things to get a job. Yes, but it wasn't entirely luck, because I also worked my ass off and put a lot of time in to make those opportunities happen. So it's definitely both.
Wow, I'm curious about more on that. Do you write, Brenden, often? Do you journal? I'm curious about, like your talks with yourselves, your conversations with yourselves. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, they're really dark. So I do journal a lot. Actually, I'll show you guys. It's just the difference between my journaling and most people's journaling is I actually do all my journaling almost exclusively on my phone. So you'll notice here there's a bunch of notes, and it'll never stop. I could scroll forever. And then I just use the search engine to look up the notes that I want. The reason I do it this way is because when I used to journal with a piece of paper, like a notebook, I'd always lose it. Or I wouldn't. Or if I didn't lose it, I'd be too lazy to revisit it. So let's say I invest a few thousand in like a leadership development conference, and I take all these notes. Oh my God, this is so good. And I don't look at the book again. Whereas let's say me and you, Ali, and Saeed, to make this inclusive, let's say we're all having lunch in LA or something, and you're like, hey, Brenden, you went to an event 6 months ago. What was your big takeaway? If I took my notes by hand, I would have a lot of trouble remembering. Saeed, Ali, I don't remember, guys. But if I have my phone, which I always do, 6 months ago, boom, Tony, Robin, Summer, all the notes appear. So I'm kind of like a cyborg, where I can just tap into old things that I used to do. So yeah, I do a lot of journaling. And there's a specific thing I do with journaling that most human beings do not, and I think that's why I found a lot of success. Yeah, I know you're curious. Find out next time. No, I'm kidding. Find out next time on the Ali Saeed show.
Yeah, exactly.
On the AA show or A2. Anyways. So yeah, there's another show behind a Patreon page called AAA it's a different set of batteries. Anyways, so for the tip is really simple, guys. Ask yourself one hard question about life every single day. Every single day. The problem with us as human beings is we do not reflect on the hard things. Let me give you an example. One of those questions is, if you could only accomplish 3 things in your life, just 3 things, nothing else, what would you want to accomplish and why? And a lot of people don't have a good answer to that question. They go, only 3 things? And this forces you to really focus on what matters. That's one. Another question is, if you had all the money in the world, excuse me, if you had all the money in the world, how would you spend your time? So I asked this question to so many people, and they go, "I'll travel." And I go, "Cool. How long are you going to travel for? 7 years and then die?" They go, "No." I was like, "Exactly. So what are you going to do with your time?" And a lot of people don't know the answer to that question either. And then the third one that I got from Devon Bandison: what's a goal or a dream that you secretly gave up on and never told anyone about? So if you ask just one of these questions every day for a year, you'll even a month, you'll be a completely different human being. It's just most people aren't willing to ask those questions.
Wow,
Mhm.
great questions.
Do you feel like people maybe might be afraid to actually go deep into their personal thoughts? I feel like, yeah, actually, that's the question. Let's stick to that.
Yeah, I'd like to think so, Saeed. But I don't think it's necessarily because people are dumb or because people are bad or because they don't have the intelligence. I think it's because it's really hard to fight our own psychology. Because our brain is wired for survival. I mean, we all know it, right?
Mhm.
It's not wired for happiness because we've been wired from generation after generation to get to this point. But there's also a double-edged sword to that. And the double-edged sword to that problem set is that if you're wired to survive, the last thing you want to do is to look within. Because if you look within, you'll realize you're actually very different from everyone else. But if you try to be different than everyone else, like what happened maybe not millions of years ago, but let's say tens of thousands of years ago, you get removed from the tribe and you die. Whereas
Yeah.
today, you don't die. It's more like, if I'm different, Ali might say, "I don't want to spend time with you. You're too different from me. You don't belong in the tribe. You don't go to the same football games as me. You don't." Obviously, Ali's not like that, but just as an example, right?
Yeah.
So as human beings, part of us actually doesn't want to know the truth. We go like, "No, I want to copy what other people want me to do so that I can fit in." There's actually an interesting theory. This is as smart as I get, guys. I don't go past this. By a French philosopher. So that's why I'm going to sound fancy once on the show, called René Girard. So René Girard is like a French philosopher, and he has this theory called mimetic theory, which basically argues that as human beings, we don't actually have desires. We tend to copy other people and what they desire because we don't actually know what we want in life. So, for example, why do I go to college? Because Ali went to college. Why do I want to have kids? Because Saeed had kids. Why do I want to get married? Because everyone else is getting married. So, because we don't have innate desires, we tend to just copy what everyone else is doing, and that creates a lot of problems. So going back to your point, Saeed, I think that's why a lot of people choose not to look within.
No, I completely agree with that point,
Wow,
and
great
it
question,
is
Said.
it is definitely like it is completely true because people tend to just wanna. I think the reason why they want to stick within their communities and these social groups that they don't want to get removed from is goes back to their like the tribes that you were mentioning. It goes back to how their ancestors used to think. It's the survival instinct that's been like reinforced in us. It's where that you have to find a community, just emulate what they do, stick to them, and you'll survive. Instead of thinking maybe I can do it by myself a bit. Instead of combining both, like being your own self and trying to find a community that works, that accepts your own self. People want to just join any common group just so that they can, fit in. And I think they just stick to the biggest groups, like with the like obviously the most basic common traits. So let's say sports, for example. It's like do you actually believe every football fan is in love with football just because that's what they want? That's what they want. They just want football in their lives, or is it because maybe they had a connection with it with someone else through them? It could be your parents, it could be your friends. And that's how you connect with them.
I mean, you explained that so well, Said. I completely agree. That's exactly the point, right? Why do we watch football? Oh, because I grew up watching football with my dad. But if it was hockey, they would have fell in love with hockey instead, right? So that's the key. That's why actually I have an Instagram reel I made on this a few weeks ago, where I argue that if you write down your list of desires and they're the same as everyone else's, you are not truly free. because you desire the same things as everyone else. So the only time I believe someone has freedom is if they have what I call unique desires. So I'll give you an example as me. I want to be the best communication coach that ever lived. That's such a weird thing to want. Like, nobody gives a shit about that. Like, who cares about that? So if you have something that you desire that most people go, that's odd, why would I want that? Then you're free. Then you're a free person.
Wow.
That's such a nice point. I love it.
This podcast is reaching high resonation, high frequency. We're
I think we lived up to your motivational speech at the beginning.
Ali set the standard for us from the beginning. We just followed through.
Yeah, the best podcast has just been created, I guess.
I like to journal. I have it all here in a notebook. I carry notebooks. Because I love my phone, and I think it's smart what you do. And I know a lot of people that journal on their phones, but I just try to separate my thinking from tech. That's just the only reason for me why I don't do it. Because tech is all over now and it's everywhere. And my question is, what do you think about ChatGPT for speech writing?
Interesting. Yeah, ChatGPT for speech writing. Here's my kind of overall. I'm a fan of ChatGPT. I think there's a lot of great use cases behind the AI tech where it allows you to make your life more efficient. And even speech writing. I mean, I think you could use ChatGPT to write great speeches for sure. But I think the challenge becomes ChatGPT is not the person delivering the talk, it's you. Right? Nobody really cares about hearing a ChatGPT speak. No one's going to pay thousands of dollars to hear what ChatGPT, like they're not going to bring ChatGPT into their Dallas office or in Texas and go, "Hey, come speak to my audience of 3,000 people." And that's where the problem lies. So if we rely too much on ChatGPT to find our answers, to find our content, a lot of people are using ChatGPT for content creation. People have asked me what I thought about that too. Once again, I'm not disagreeing. It's true. It's more efficient. But the problem is ChatGPT isn't the person, because it's not a person, is not the thing answering questions on a podcast like this. Like, think about it like this. If all of my YouTube videos were written by ChatGPT, which I will neither confirm nor deny, right? and I came to a podcast conversation like this, and you ask me a question about speaking, but I go, I don't know. My credibility goes into the toilet. You go, wait a second, like Brendan's a sham. So I think the same thing applies for my industry, for public speaking specifically. So yes, should you leverage ChatGPT? Of course you should. Like I've leveraged it once or twice, and I should do it more often, honestly, for content ideas. So it's not like ChatGPT write me this content piece, but more like, what are some ideas of videos you think I should be writing about? And then I look at the list and I go, oh, that's good. But the reason I create the IP, even if it takes me way longer, is so that I'm actually an expert. So that when people actually pay me money to coach them or show up on a podcast like this, or not, you know what I mean? Like just to show up on a stage, like I can come with the same level of credibility. So the expectation you have from me on social media maybe is not the same, but at least close enough where you go, oh yeah, he's definitely an expert. And then you have the full stack credibility, which ChatGPT will not provide for anyone who just knows how to put in prompts into an AI algo.
So you would say that ChatGPT probably lacks the complete package of quality to be providing to educate the masses?
So I think it's more like, I think there's a lot of great knowledge on ChatGPT, but it just lacks the human in human being. Mm-hmm. Like you're not going to spend that. This is the thing. I don't hate ChatGPT. I think it's here to stay. Like, so we have to adapt. But the point I want to drive is like, none of us on this podcast today are going to spend $2,000 to go to a conference, sit on a chair, and take notes for a ChatGPT conference given by ChatGPT. Like, none of us are going to do that. You'll spend $2,000 to go learn from Tony Robbins. Mm-hmm. And that's that thing that's missing, is like, when there's no human I actually think, and this is kind of one of my counterintuitive points, I actually think the human being themselves, even if they are imperfect, is actually a necessary part of the learning experience in any skill. And I'll tell you why. The reason is because, let's say you want to be a fitness, like you want to learn how to lose weight, you want to exercise more often, something like that. Can you go on ChatGPT and optimize the perfect diet plan? Of course. I mean, maybe not perfect yet, but in 20 years, probably, right? But will you still implement the diet plan? If you don't have the human being saying, "Hey, Brenden, like, did you do it this week?" And you know it's a real human being. There's just that level of accountability where we feel we're letting that person down, and that pushes us to get to a new level result that AI cannot replicate. Even if the AI sounds like us, if the human being knows that it's an AI, they treat that AI differently than if it was a real human being. And I don't think that can ever be replaced, personally. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But who knows?
like,
I'll be wrong. Let's see.
I think we still have a lot of time to be proven
we'll
wrong
see.
about AI, and I agree wholeheartedly on that point. They can't replicate the emotions that other humans can share with each other.
Yeah,
And
like hugs.
exactly, hugs, showing empathy, being sad, angry,
Tickling your
crying.
belly. Yeah, I can't do that shit.
Yeah,
I do that with my clients all the time. I go like, they're like, "What are you doing, Brenden?" I was like, "Did you do the random word exercise today?" They're like, "Shit." I can't do that shit.
I guess it works.
It does.
You know, it's funny you say that,
depends.
Brenden. I'm like teaching like mega young kids how to speak too, who don't know how to speak. And one of the tips is you want to teach them to vocalize, and if they don't know how to vocalize, you tickle their belly.
I did not know that, actually.
You give them a reward, and then they learn that, oh, I can, like, they want me to vocalize, and that's how they learn how to speak. And it all stems from, I'm not joking, and it works. It's like
that actually makes a lot of sense
yeah,
to
me. It's something I learned. Wow, this has been some of the most epic thoughts ever transmitted throughout the world.
Through our brains, through our audience brains.
I can't believe we made it happen. I mean,
something happened today.
I want to ask you, Brenden. I want to ask you the questions that you said you wanted to journal about. I'm curious how you'd answer them. So, what are the 3 things you would love to do in your life if you could only focus on 3 things? If you had infinite money, what would you do? And what's one path you started but did not complete?
Wow. Okay, usually people don't ask me the questions back, which I love. So happy to answer them as an example. So the first one, which is, what are the 3 things that I'd want to accomplish before I die? I've thought about this question for a long time, and I think I have the best version so far. But I think that's the message, is I'm still iterating. I'm still thinking about the same questions. So number 1 is TBCCTEL, which stands for the best communication coach that ever lived. You know, I honestly think I'm the best who's ever lived, and I need to make sure that by the end of my life, that people and I got lucky that I was born in this time period of history, because when Dale Carnegie was alive, yeah, he was the GOAT right at the time, and he still is to this day. But the problem is, he wasn't born in an era with color, with video, with podcasting, with YouTube channels. So we don't really get to know him as the person. Whereas what's interesting about, I mean, all 3 of us, not just me, is that after I'm gone, people can study me. My parents, not my parents, my sons, grandsons, granddaughter, whatever, can study me forever. And I think that's really interesting, because you get a full 100% HD perspective on who I was and how I lived. And that's a really interesting opportunity that I take very seriously. So that's one, to be TBCCTEL. The second thing is to have a wife and kids. I think having a family is something I definitely want. I just don't want it in this season of life, because I'm 27. I want to really push my goals of communication further, so that when I start dating girls and then pick the one that I want to end up being with, I don't want to have the same stress that my parents did in raising us, because I didn't grow up with a lot. My parents were factory workers and whatnot, and kids are a big expense. So I want to make sure that by the time I have them, that I really want them, and it won't cause any severe changes in our economic situation. So that's number 2. And number 3 is to make my cousins multimillionaires. So I already know I'm going to be pretty successful financially. I mean, I'm grateful. I've already had some success already pretty early in my career. But I think what Patrick Bet-David taught me, which is so powerful, is you should never pass down generational wealth unless you want to. But more importantly, you need to pass down generational habits. Because if you teach somebody how to use index funds and you just sit people down, which I can't do for the world because I'm focused on communication, well, at least I can go to the 7 cousins that I love the most and sit them down and go like, this is how you're going to invest your money. This is why you shouldn't talk to a financial advisor. They're going to take 2% of all your money. Instead, do it like this. And that is the third thing. You know, what's interesting on how I changed my answer recently, guys, is before the third thing was for me to have a net worth of whatever, put any number there, $100 million, $50 million. And I changed it because I was like, who cares? Like, that doesn't matter, right? I think it's more important that my whole family is wealthy through their own merits so that they teach the right habits so that we're not poor anymore as a community. And I think that's the third thing.
Wow.
That's amazing. Like, the fact that you just want to share it all instead of just keeping it for yourself.
I'm keeping it for myself, Saeed. I'm just not keeping the knowledge to myself. But like the money, I'm keeping it. I'm not passing any of the money to my kids.
And you shouldn't, because then that would defeat the purpose of them making their own decisions. Yeah, 100%.
There's a great quote from Alex Hormozy. He uses a card in a trading game called Magic: The Gathering. And in Magic, there's a card called the Burning Wish, and the card description on it reads, "She wished for she wished for the weapon, but not the strength to wield it." So a lot of us in our life, we wish for the weapon, the money, the fame, the fortune, but we don't wish for the strength to wield it. What type of person do I need to be to wield that type of energy? And you guys can Google this. That's why 70% of people of generational wealth gets lost in 2 generations, because you pass it down to and you could look it up. It's really fascinating. So yeah.
No, 100%. Sorry if I just like made an outburst because like you.
No.
I love the quote about, you know how there's this quote where, so tough men make easy times, but easy times make like weak men make tough times, and then tough times, you know. Like I keep forgetting the whole quote, but
it's a long one.
Yeah,
it's complicated.
But I completely understand the cycle, and I feel like this is like to escape this cycle, you have to not pass on just your generational wealth. You have to pass on the knowledge of how to make it. Don't give your money away to your kids. Like, let them do it themselves. Put them in economy class, bro. When you're in first class sipping your martini and just like enjoying your time. When you're driving, like when you're just going out into a fancy
just
restaurant,
put them in the trunk. When you're driving, leave your kids in the trunk.
Bro, they don't sit in the back seat. They sit in the trunk. But it's like on the spare tire. I don't care. They're not sitting. But no, in complete honesty, this is, they have to be taught and not just handed down stuff.
That's the key.
If you had all the money in the world, what would you do with it?
I love it, man. I love it. You're persistent, which I appreciate. So the next question is, if I had all the money in the world, how would I spend my time? The simple answer, guys, is what we're doing right now. So the problem was 3 years ago, I wasn't living to the extent of that question, which I was in a great corporate job. Don't get me wrong. IBM was great to me. I was making a lot of good money, probably 80, 90 grand a year as a technology consultant. I was providing for my family. It's really cheap to live in Montreal. So that was enough for all of us. But when I looked at that question that I asked myself a lot, Ali, I wasn't spending my time effectively. Because I would sit in like an hour meeting, and I was like leading maybe two technology implementations at the same time. So I was working like 70, 80 hours a week sometimes. And I was just thinking, I'm in this meeting getting technical requirements and all this jazz. And I'm going, why am I in this meeting? Like, shouldn't somebody else be in this meeting? Whereas like this conversation, only I can have it with you guys for this episode. So no one can replace me for this podcast, but somebody else can do the tech implementation. So I really started to ask myself, like, how am I spending my time? And today I still apply that question. except now it's more in the minutia. So it's not the big picture of holy shit, like I should quit my job and do public speaking coaching, because I love what I do. Like coaching is super fun. And you even know, like you can tell how much I enjoy podcasting. Like you guys probably thought I was a little stiff because of the YouTube channel. Oh, is this guy gonna be a good fit for the show? Like, and then I come on, I'm like super chill, right? So like I have a lot of fun with this. But for me, the answer is a lot more, it's more boring now, which is like, okay, when my business scales, I don't want to do sales calls anymore. I'd rather take less money and have somebody else deal with that, because I don't like talking to people who aren't committed. Because I have to go through like 3 of them who aren't committed, but listen to their problems in their life to get to the 4th person who is like, I'm ready to do this. Brenden, you're my inspiration. Like, I'm ready to write the check. Let's do it. So I'm not against sales. It's what makes me money, and I'm not bad at it. I'm not the best at it, but I'm not the worst either. But like that's how I'd spend my time differently. Hire somebody else to do that for me when the business gets to a big enough size where I'm comfortable doing that. But the big answer to that question, Ali, was really, I need to quit my job. I'm not spending my time effectively to serve the world, especially when I got, and this is luck, Saeed. I'll take this as luck, honestly, where it just turns out that the thing that I'm really gifted at just pays a lot of money. Like that's not something I could have controlled. Like there's one of my best buddies who made my logo, actually. He's like I'm not going to say famous, but he's like a pretty well-known painter. But the reason he blew up was because of TikTok. But painting doesn't pay a lot of money. It's because he built a reputation and he kept pushing at it, that he does well financially now. But I got lucky that my skill set is easy to monetize. So that would be my answer to the question.
I would still disagree about the luck part.
Fair enough. But you'll admit that it's harder. Like it's way harder to build a 6-7 figure business off of painting than public speaking. Public speaking coach is way easier.
So the thing is, Brenden, you said it already. You identified your unique traits when you quit your job and followed this passion. And every person, every individual, obviously not everyone can emulate the same like skill set that you have, because they're just different people, and they most probably can make a lot of money maybe in a different field. So it's not about being lucky or trying to do something and then it's like not working out. It's more of just like finding what makes you unique, and this is something you already mentioned also on the podcast, is like finding your unique personality, skill set, combining all of these traits, and then just promoting it. It's like sharing it with people. Find a way to share your uniqueness with others, and you can become successful.
Fair enough. We'll agree to disagree today.
All right. And Brenden, what's something you started and didn't finish?
Yeah, what's a goal or a dream that I secretly gave up on? So for me it was, honestly, I'm lucky here. I'm not lucky. Sorry, he's gonna hate me. I was really unlucky.
I'll let you. I'll give it to you.
So for the story, no, I mean I'm grateful. Let me change the word. I'm grateful that my answer to this question isn't too bad. Where it's like I actually ended up pursuing what I wanted to do. Like I really wanted to do communication coaching, and I do it now full time, and my life's a bliss. But what I do share to that answer, because I had to dig a little bit more, was when I was 12, I had a dream to be a stand-up comedian. That was like one of my dreams, because Russell Peters was like my hero. He's like the stand-up comedian, this Indian guy. But then I watched him on an episode of MTV Cribs, and I saw his lifestyle. And at the end of the episode, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. Like, this is crazy. And then I changed careers, and I chose to be an accountant, and then I later found communication coaching. So that's my answer to the question. But for other people, the answer to the question is going to be a lot more. It's going to hit them more in the gut. It's going to be like, oh, like, what's a goal? Well, I always wanted to be an actor, and then I became an accountant instead or something. So I encourage people. Like, I genuinely don't want to be a stand-up comedian anymore. I might do it once or twice for fun, but I don't want to do that. But 3 years ago, the answer was, hey, why am I still a technology consultant? I should really be a communication coach. And that's really the key.
Wow. Saeed, any last questions before we wrap up here?
I think I've asked enough questions at this point, because I've thoroughly enjoyed this whole podcast, and I completely resonate with Brendan's points a lot. obviously except being lucky, but yeah, other than that, it's all good.
Don't get me wrong. I worked my ass off to be here.
Exactly.
There's no denying it. There's no denying it. I mean, I practiced like 400 times in college. I coached 60 people for free before somebody ever charged. I've guested on 500 podcasts. Like, there's clearly output here. But I always like to bring the luck piece too, because without it, like, I don't think everything comes together. But yes, the hard work is a big piece of that for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. You heard it here, folks. Brenden, you started off with not so much. You were on a completely different life path, and then you just worked hard and you built your skills, and you kept building your skills and working hard, and then you manifested Master Talk. How incredible. And then hundreds of podcasts later, here you are. And we are.
Hopefully this is going to be the best podcast that you've ever been on.
I mean, you guys are definitely top 5. You guys are definitely top 5.
Yeah!
We'll take it. We'll take it. We're elevating. We're going there. This has been A2 the Show with Brenden from Master Talk, guys. Thank you for watching. Peace out.
Ciao. Out of here.